Hello everyone, welcome to our video tutorial on IT Professional Elective 1, which is the Virtual Systems and Services. And for this video, we will discuss one of the popular open source hypervisor around from internet, developed by Oracle. And this is called the VirtualBox. So, but before we go through to VirtualBox, we need to mention first some important terms, since that this subject discusses about virtualization. And of course, this technology is very essential in implementing about cloud computing. So, for the benefit of virtualization is actually for wide area networking over the internet, which especially for e-commerce or doing business, those servers and that uh, um, transaction, heavy transaction performed by server, and that the server is actually supervised or managed by a special hardware called virtualization. You imagine that clients or customers, uh, there are actually hundreds or thousands of customers, and servers can handle that easily because of the virtualization technology. Just like in the Amazon.com, they're using the virtualization technology to perform or to execute their transaction easily. So, uh, what is virtualization? So, when we say virtualization, this is about software. Okay, so virtualization is a software, not hardware. Okay, so virtualization is sometimes called hypervisor. Okay, this creates abstraction layer. When we say abstraction layer, it formulates an instance. Okay, it formulates an instance in order to achieve or in order to perform its goal. So this instance will be uh, performed over a computer hardware. Okay, so it creates an abstraction layer over computer hardware that allows the hardware elements of a computer. So remember that a computer has components like processors or the CPU, memory or RAM, and storage devices, and many more. Okay. Once once it creates an abstraction layer or an instance, it will now create a virtual computer. Okay. So this virtual computer is now called virtual machine or VM. Okay, virtual machine. So this instance computer or virtual computer is a virtual machine. But uh, in VirtualBox, they called it, or in virtualization software, they called it guest computer. Okay, a computer that has its own operating system over a real or host computer. So I mentioned a while back about host computer and guest computer. Okay, so a host computer is a hardware, okay, that is tangible, that has many components. It has RAM, it has storage devices, it has CPU, okay, and this host computer has its own operating system. In this case, in this laptop I am using, it has it is installed with Windows 10. Okay. Now, once we have a host computer, we can use virtualization software. okay, or hypervisor. Once we have installed the hypervisor, we can now create multiple virtual machines. Okay, virtual machines. So this virtual machine refers as guest computer or guest a computer that has its own operating system. So imagine the picture. We have here a big part of computer, and within of this host computer, we have here virtual computers or virtual machine. And this virtual machine has its own operating system. Like, for example, Mac OS X, Linux, or other version of Windows or Android, and so on and so forth. This is a good idea of having a virtualization software when you do an experiment. For example, in this case, I am using a Windows operating system, and for example, I haven't tried yet the Mac OS X, and because MacBook is very expensive and I can't afford it, you can you can do that using hypervisor by making a guest computer. Okay, for example, I haven't tried yet a Linux or Ubuntu Linux or Red Hat Linux. You can easily do that by installing a hypervisor like the VirtualBox, then creates a virtual machine, then install Linux or an Ubuntu. Okay, so that is one benefit of having a virtualization software. Okay, so another benefit of virtualization software is that, for example, experimenting about networking. Okay, actually, in traditional networking, what we do is physical. We use, of course, using cables, using RG45, and we need to extend that cable to it that port unit. You have to connect that port to one computer to the end of another computer, and you do some configuration of computer and to make up some connection. Okay, so you do it physically in that is the traditional networking. But once you set up or once you could configure a hypervisor having with at least 3 or 4 computers, guest computer that has an operating system, you can do a networking experiment here. Okay, so those are the that is another one advantage of having a virtualization software. Another is, for example, when you created an Android program, okay, and your operating system is a Windows based, and you want to try it, what you want to experiment it in one particular device. Actually, you can do that in the hypervisor installed with an operating system of Android, and you can execute that Android program to that Android operating system. So those are the benefit of hypervisor or virtualization software. So having said, um, as I've said a while ago, we will demonstrate on how to install and configure a, a hypervisor. And this hypervisor we'll be using is the VirtualBox. If you don't know about VirtualBox, you can easily you can download it easily from internet. So if you have a laptop that has a web browser, you can search from Google about VirtualBox. Then you just click the link and download it, then install it. That's that's very easy. So of course, before we install the VirtualBox, we have to consider first the requirement. Okay. Remember that in VirtualBox or installing any hypervisor, it requires a heavy resources. When we say heavy resources, our machine, our host machine, must have higher capacity or higher CPU speed. In this case, we will be experimenting is that uh, in this case, um, I'm using a laptop which has an Intel i5 around 1.6 to 1.8 gigahertz, and it has many memory, around 12 gigabyte of memory, and the operating system in this laptop is a 64-bit operating system. So you can install a hypervisor with lower hardware spec. Of course, the lower the high. I mean, when you install a VirtualBox in a lower hardware spec, you expect, of course, lower speed of execution. Unlike when you use higher speed CPU that has many memory, you expect high performance of or high processing speed of the operation or processes of the VirtualBox. Of course, the more higher capacity, the more higher speed is the better. That's the because the hypervisor or virtualization software really needs higher capacity. Okay, so so in this case, I have these hardware resources, our hardware specs. Okay, so now from web browser, you can uh, search from Google. Okay, and you just type uh, VirtualBox from and then search, and then it will now display the home page of the VirtualBox. Okay, so I'll just connect to the internet. Okay, okay. So from in the Google, you type um, you search VirtualBox there, and then open their website there, and then there. So in their homepage, VirtualBox is a powerful x88, x86, and AMD 64 Intel 60 virtualization product for enterprise as well as home use. Okay, so there are descriptions in their website. So we need to download this product, okay, and install it. Once we've downloaded it, we install it in our computer. Okay, so since that our system is running is a Windows 10 OS and 64-bit, of course, we need to choose the Windows host link. Okay, okay, and here, okay, and then you just wait a few minutes. Then once you have downloaded there, okay, it is downloading, and then wait about few minutes. Then you click that installer, and then you just click next, next, next. Then it will now display the virtual box main screen. Okay, I have here in my computer a virtual box main screen, but in this case I've already installed virtual machine or virtual computers or guest computers. So in my configuration, I have installed a computer with an operating system Linux, and they called it Nupix Linux, and another is the older version of Windows, which is the Windows XP. So as you can see, at the right in the left pane, when you click one operating in here, in one in the created operating system, so there are descriptions here. So these descriptions here are actually the resources of a computer. So Windows XP is an operating system installed in these resources. So in these resources, its memory is around 1 gig. Okay, it has a hard disk, an acceleration about VT, AMD, and so on. The display memory is 16 megabyte. Okay, and so on. Its storage is around 15 gigabyte here, and there is also a sound, and there is also a network card. Specification is Intel Pro and so on. So there is also a USB port and so on and so forth. So these are hardware components, okay, of the operating system Windows XP. Okay, so I've already installed the Windows XP here. So let us try to execute the Windows XP, and then later we will install the Nupix. No, we will execute the Nupix Linux. So here, since that there are two, you just click one and then click start. Okay, click start. So once you click start, okay, there. All right. Okay, that is Windows XP. Remember that in my laptop, I am using in my laptop the operating system is Windows 10. Okay, but in here in the configured uh, virtual machine, it is a Windows XP. So you imagine I have now two operating systems here. From host OS, it is installed with Windows 10, and in the virtual machine configured with Windows XP operating system that creates a virtual computer, the operating system here is a Windows XP. This is a lower version of Windows that was developed in the 2001. You imagine a Windows I can execute. I can open a Windows, an older version of Windows. This is a Windows XP from higher version of Windows 10. So this is Windows from Windows 10. There is another operating system, Windows XP. So I have in this interface, Windows XP operating system, there are several software installed here like Firefox and some Microsoft Word and some other utilities. Okay, like operating this Windows XP is just like operating with other operating higher operating system. Of course, you can web browse here. You can do internet here. You can play games here. You can watch movie here from Windows XP. The same thing with the host computer Windows 10. So you imagine there are two operating systems now here. So next, in this configured um, virtual box, I have here the Nopix Linux. Okay, so uh, let us try. So in the when you click the Nopix Linux from left pane, okay, there is some descriptions here. These descriptions referring to the hardware component of the operating system, or the hardware component of the component of the hardware installed with Linux. So it says here NOPIX Linux kernel is 2.6 and so on, and then 512 MB, lower than Windows XP. It has display memory of 16 megabyte, 3D acceleration. It has also a hard drive. It has also sound and so on and so forth. So uh, this is already configured. So we can open this one by clicking the start button. Okay, so click start. Okay, you just, of course, the execution takes time. Okay, so we need to wait few seconds, okay, a few minutes in order to open the. Okay, so that is the screen of the operating system Linux. So as you can see, the Linux OS is initializing, and then it initialize some information resources. It reads some information from the created. Uh, so there,
Initiating startup sequence.
okay. So okay. So now this is now another operating system of VirtualBox, configured uh, before. So here, this Linux is has a feature of graphical user interface that lets you manipulate some icons, some files, and so on and so forth. So a while ago, this is a Windows, okay, and and the and the next is this is now the Nupix Linux. Okay, you can create programs, you can play games here, you can do internet, you can browse using web browser. So actually the interface is somewhat different in the Windows based operating system. Okay, so you the bottom line here is that using the virtual box as a hypervisor, it executes, okay, two operating system, okay, the Windows and the Linux. Okay, as I mentioned a while ago regarding the advantages or the benefits of installing an hypervisor, having with different instances of computer, you can do experiment here. You can do programming, and you can deploy your program with another system. You can experiment operating system that you haven't tried it yet, and many more. Okay, so this is about the executing or opening of a configured uh, virtual machines. Okay, so once if we want to stop, or if we want to shut down this guest OS, you can shut down it just like performing in an actual computer. Okay, so there. Okay, shut down there.
Initiating shutdown sequence.
Okay, so it goes back to the main screen of the virtual box. Okay, so that's it about the our video on VirtualBox, but we will expound more, or we will explain more about on how to create a virtual machine, on how to create uh, instance of a computer, So in the next meeting, we will discuss those topic. So now this ends our video tutorial. But you can, but if you have question, you can comment to the uh, comment box. Okay, I would be glad to answer your comments. So until next time, so see you.